I'm sorry I called you gay, by the way, but I'm always, I think I'm just too old or something. I'm like, why is anyone married? You tell me, why aren't people married?
Well, I mean, honestly, it's the women.
This episode is brought to you by Google Presents Kiwi Farms. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for your daily dose of internet subcultures.
Or don't. I mean, honestly, for your own mental health, maybe just keep walking. Save yourself.
Yeah, that's a fair warning. We're recording this at what feels like 2 in the morning, just staring into the digital abyss.
And tonight, the abyss isn't just staring back. It is, screaming. Incoherently.
In the form of an 18-minute video rant, that might just be the single most ill-advised career move I have ever witnessed.
I feel like we're two exhausted anthropologists watching a car crash in slow motion. But instead of cars, it's just logic.
And instead of a highway, it's the crumbling infrastructure of internet personality Nick Fuentes' entire reputation.
It's a spectacular crash, though. A real multi-car pileup of just bad takes.
We have waded through the absolute sludge so you, the listener, do not have to.
Nope.
Our mission today is to unpack a recent deep dive, and I use that term very loosely. It's more of a deep spiral.
A spiral, yeah.
Where a self-proclaimed Christian traditionalist decides the hill he wants to die on is defending Jeffrey Epstein.
It is a fascinating, if, horrifying case study in contrarianism gone completely wrong. We've got the video transcript of Fuentes himself, and we've also got the reaction thread from Kiwi Farms.
And we really need to talk about Kiwi Farms for a second, because that context matters so much here.
It really does. For anyone fortunate enough not to know, Kiwi Farms they're usually the villain in these stories.
Right. They are the internet's bullies, full stop.
Usually, yes. It's a forum that's notorious for ruthless trolling, for doxing, for just archiving internet insanity. They are not the good guys.
But in this specific story, they are somehow, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, they're the voice of reason.
Which tells you just how far off the map we are about to go.
Exactly. When the people on Kiwi Farms think you've gone too far, you have really, really messed up.
It's like the Joker telling you to tone it down a bit.
Right. So, let's rip the Band-Aid off. What is the galaxy brain take here? Because on the surface, defending Epstein seems like political suicide for anyone, let alone a guy who preaches traditional values.
So the central thesis, if you can even call it that, is Fuentes stating, and this is a verbatim quote from the source material, Jeff Epstein, not a pedophile.
And listen, you niggas are not ready for that conversation, but Jeff Epstein, not a pedophile. But you're not ready for that conversation. All of his victims, 14 to 17. That's not pedophilia.
Okay, stop. He actually says those words in that order.
He does. Jeff Epstein, not a pedophile.
Wow.
And he doesn't just say it, he kind of gatekeeps it. He positions this take as some kind of elite intellectual property. He says, quote, "You N-words are not ready for that conversation."
He uses the slur, of course.
Oh, multiple times. He says, y'all ain't ready for that conversation. He's framing this as if he possesses some higher forbidden knowledge that the rest of us normies are just too simple to grasp.
That's a classic cult tactic, isn't it? I know the secret truth. It's Gnosticism for internet trolls.
It is.
But how does he even begin to justify that statement factually? I mean, we know Epstein was convicted. We know the ages of the victims. We have the flight logs.
And this is where we get into the semantic gymnastics. And it's really crucial to understand his logic, to see the manipulation he's attempting.
Okay.
He acknowledges that Epstein's victims were largely between 14 and 17. He admits that. The facts are facts. But he argues that because they weren't, prepubescent children like infants or toddlers, it technically, categorically doesn't count as pedophilia.
So it's the Webster's Dictionary defense. He's splitting hairs between pedophile and hebephile, effectively. He's clinging to a clinical definition to dodge a moral reality.
Exactly, though he doesn't even use those clinical terms as much. He just uses his own rigid definition. He specifically says, pedophilia is sex with children. Children are people that are before the age of sexual maturity.
So he's trying to decouple the visceral, the moral outrage that comes with the word pedophilia from what Epstein actually did.
Yes, but the why is the interesting part.
Okay, why? What is the strategic value in that distinction? Even if you technically change the label, the act is still exploitation of a minor. Does he think exploiter of minors is a better brand?
He's actually trying to debunk a very specific conspiracy theory that's been circulating on the far right. This is the context you really need to understand the why.
The really extreme stuff.
Yeah, the theories from people like Candace Owens, even Virginia Giuffre claiming Epstein was involved in, satanic ritual abuse, sacrificing infants, drinking blood for adrenochrome.
Right, the super extreme QAnon-style theories, the Epstein was a wizard stuff.
Correct. So Fuentes is desperate to separate Epstein from that specific satanic label. He wants to frame Epstein not as some monster doing magic rituals, but as a baller doing high-stakes business.
Okay, baller. He actually uses that word to describe Jeffrey Epstein.
He literally calls Epstein a baller-ass N-word.
That is, I mean, wow. That is jarring.
So I'll say it. So yeah, I mean, look, Epstein, baller ass nigga. And look, yeah, okay, criminal. But when people say, oh, he's this pedophile, satanic, Candace Owens put out this tweet. She said he was given triplets. That is a fabrication. That was made up by Virginia Giuffre, a serial fabulist who makes up a ton of shit, not a reliable person.
It's more than jarring. It's so revealing. He says, Epstein, baller-ass N-word. And look, yeah, okay, criminal. That is the direct quote. He is framing the whole blackmail ring, the Lolita Express, as just a high-stakes, illegal business move.
So he's admiring the mechanism. He's looking at a sex trafficking ring and saying, wow, smart business plan, high leverage.
Precisely. It's an admiration of power. To Fuentes, Epstein isn't a degenerate. He's a rational actor playing a very dangerous game. He's essentially saying he wasn't a monster. He was just a calculated predator using teenage girls as currency.
And he thinks this makes it better.
Or at least he thinks it makes Epstein not a pedophile in the strictest biological sense, which lets him keep this intellectual accuracy facade.
It's like watching someone try to clean up a crime scene with a dirty rag. You're just smearing the mess around.
Well, that leads to his pivot. Once he feels he has established that Epstein isn't a pedophile because the girls were 14 plus, he moves to his main justification. This is where we get into the 14 is mature argument.
I read this part of the transcript, and honestly, this is where my eyes rolled so hard, I think I saw my own brainstem. But walk us through it. How does a man in the 21st century argue that a 14-year-old is an adult?
This is the appeal to antiquity fallacy, just in overdrive. Fuentes argues that biologically, after age 14, a person is past the point of sexual maturity, just period, biologically. And he gets incredibly angry at the modern societal standard.
He went on that rant about people calling 20-year-olds children.
Oh, yeah. He said she's not even a figurative child, let alone a literal child.
Yeah.
He is furious that society views young adults or even late teens as people who still need some protection. But to back this up, he doesn't use, modern psychology or neuroscience.
He uses religion, let me guess.
He cites Catholic canon law. He points out that the minimum age to get married in the church is 14 for women and 16 for men. And he uses this to say, you want to pull rank on me with morality, I would take you there.
I would take you there. As if citing a medieval standard is a gotcha moment in 2024. But isn't there just a massive context collapse there?
Huge.
Yeah.
It's a canyon of context collapse. He argues this was the norm for thousands and thousands of years. He says in the old days, girls would get married at 16 to build a life and be provided for.
He's romanticizing a survival mechanism from centuries ago. In 1400 AD, life expectancy was, 35? You married at 14 because you might be dead by 25.
Right. It was about survival, ensuring the lineage continued before you died of dysentery or the plague. It wasn't about thriving or emotional maturity. It was pure necessity.
And he's trying to apply that medieval survival strategy to a billionaire trafficking ring in the modern era.
It's the mid-century villain monologue. It really is. It's like he's playing a character who just woke up from a cryogenic freeze in 1350 and is just confused by the concept of high school.
But the cynicism is off the charts because he's using this religious veneer to justify what Epstein did. Epstein wasn't marrying these girls to provide for them.
No.
He was using them as bait.
That's the disconnect he just conveniently ignores. He focuses entirely on the biological capacity for reproduction. He asks, when do men and women reach the age of sexual maturity? It ain't 18.
So he just bypasses the psychological, the emotional, the societal aspects of maturity completely. The fact that the brain isn't fully formed until you're 25. Irrelevant to him.
Prefrontal cortex, never heard of it.
So if biology is his only metric, and Epstein is just a businessman, then who is the villain in Nick Fuentes' world? Because every story needs a bad guy.
Oh, don't worry, he has a villain. It's the same villain it always is for him.
Feminism.
Feminism.
Of course. It's always feminism. How does he even tie the Epstein scandal to feminism? That seems like a leap, even for him.
This is the matrix theory he proposes. He claims that modern age of consent laws, specifically the push for 18 or 21, are a second-wave feminist artifact. He actually claims age of consent only became a thing like 30 years ago.
Which is just factually laughable. Age of consent laws have been evolving for centuries. But go on. I need to hear the conspiracy.
He argues that feminism uses words like pedo, rapist, and misogynist to browbeat men and to prop up women's rights.
Mm-hmm.
In his worldview, these laws exist for one reason.
That is.
To ensure women complete high school and college so they can enter the workforce.
So he thinks the government or the matrix is keeping women from marrying at 14 so they can become tax-paying employees.
Yes, that's it. But there was one line in the transcript that actually sent a chill down my spine. It stops being funny for a second. It starts being dangerous.
Okay.
He says, consent is not. I don't think that's really a real thing. I think that's like a feminist construct.
Whoa. Let's just pause on that. Consent is not a real thing.
That is the moment the mask doesn't just slip. It falls off and it shatters on the floor.
Yeah.
When you dismiss consent as a construct, you are opening the door to everything.
Everything.
He frames it as a societal dysfunction. He argues there is this gap. You have biological maturity at 14, but the average marriage age is like 28.
The 10-year gap theory. I've heard this in other manosphere spaces.
Right. And he argues that this gap, combined with birth control and abortion, is what promotes promiscuity, OnlyFans culture, and all societal decay. He's blaming feminism for the existence of laws that protect teenagers from being exploited.
It's this bizarre circular logic. He essentially says, we have these laws because we hate the idea of women being taken advantage of, but he says it with this sneer, as if protecting vulnerable people is a bad thing.
He believes that protecting them infantilizes them. He says teenage girls are vulnerable and corruptible, but then he says, but they're sexually mature, so the laws are stupid. He's tried to hold two completely contradictory thoughts at once.
It just sounds like intellectual exhaustion. He's twisting himself into knots to justify a worldview that just doesn't fit with reality.
It is exhaustion. And you know who else is exhausted? The internet trolls.
This was the most surprising part of the whole thing for me. We looked at the reaction from Kiwi Farms, and as you said, they are usually the villains. What was the vibe there?
Kiwi Farms is a digital dumpster fire. It's a repository of internet cruelty. They don't have a moral compass in any traditional sense. They just like to watch things burn.
They are the nihilists of the web.
And even they think Fuentes has lost his mind.
That is the barometer, isn't it? When the people who live to troll are looking at you and going, brah, that's too far.
Exactly. The site administrator, a user known as Null, who is a character in his own right, had a very colorful take. He commented that Fuentes is terminally unlikable.
Okay.
He said Fuentes gets close to making a point and then, and I'm quoting the source here,
Yeah.
chokes on cock.
Vivid imagery, but what does he mean by that?
Null's point was that Fuentes has this self-destructive streak.
Yeah.
He spikes his own arguments into the ground with these dipshit statements. He builds up a potentially interesting critique and then ruins it by defending a sex trafficker. He just can't help himself.
There was another user, Gibbs, who transcribed the entire thing, just cataloging the madness. But my favorite comment came from a user named Dagoth Emojis. They quoted as saying, a hebophile is just a pedophile with a dictionary.
Or a thesaurus, as they corrected later. And that just cuts to the heart of it, doesn't it? Fuentes is hiding behind this very specific Greek term or this biological definition, and the forum users are just laughing at him. They see right through it.
They know that when you have to open a dictionary to explain why you aren't a predator, you've already lost the argument.
Exactly. But there is a theory floating around the thread that this isn't just stupidity. Some users think it's intentional.
The Fed asset theory, yes. This is so common in these circles.
It is. Several users, like Irredeemable Ret2, speculated that Fuentes is actually a federal asset or an informant, and that his handlers just activated a kill switch.
The kill switch. So basically, forcing him to say the most indefensible thing possible to just completely tank his own movement.
It sounds crazy, but it's the only way they can rationalize it.
Yeah.
You have to understand, these are people who agreed with Fuentes on other things. They're in the same ecosystem. And they're asking, why would he do this?
Right. Why would a guy who relies on a base of Christian values, conservatives, come out and defend Jeffrey Epstein?
It looks like career suicide. So to preserve their own worldview, they invent a conspiracy. He must be a Fed, because no one on our side could possibly be this dumb.
User Sneedmiser even joked that he gives it until Sunday before Tucker Carlson claims he was right about Nick being a Fed. It's just paranoia eating itself.
It is. It's layers of irony. You have a forum of conspiracy theorists analyzing a conspiracy theorist who's debunking a conspiracy theory about a conspiracy. It's like Inception, but everyone is terrible.
And users are calling out the hypocrisy, too. One user, Thivalanesiu, noted the sarcastic shock. The guy who previously said adults should marry 16-year-olds because it's, quote, right when the milk is good, would defend Epstein.
Ugh, right when the milk is good. I need a shower just reading that.
I know. It's repulsive. But it shows a pattern, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. The forum users are acknowledging that this isn't new for him. The creepy fixation on youth has always been there. But the target of his defense is what's so shocking.
Defending Epstein is the third rail of American politics.
It is. Left, right, center, everyone agrees Epstein was a monster. You just don't touch it. And Fuentes didn't just touch it, he hugged it.
And with such arrogance, you N-words aren't ready for this conversation. It's that desperate need to be the smartest guy in the room.
That's the drug of contrarianism. And I think this is a key insight for you listening. It starts with question everything. Then it becomes question the mainstream narrative. And eventually you end up in a place where if the mainstream says Jeffrey Epstein was a monster, you feel compelled to say, well, actually, just to prove you weren't a sheep.
It's an intellectual trap. You argue yourself into defending a blackmailer and a sex trafficker just to own the feminists.
You become so obsessed with being anti-system that you lose your basic humanity, and you end up blaming feminists for the fact that you can't marry a teenager. That's the core of his frustration.
One user, Nan Navy SEAL Commander, asked if this is the downfall of Nicholas Gay Fuentes, using a slur there to mock him. But they pointed out the danger, too. They said he's encouraging his dumb fans to think this behavior is okay, that consent isn't real.
And that's the dark side of the absurdity. We can laugh at him being roasted by Kiwi Farms, but the rhetoric itself is dangerous. When you tell a young, impressionable audience, mostly young men who feel disenfranchised, that consent is a feminist construct, you are stripping away the moral guardrails of society.
You're telling them that their predatory impulses are actually righteous.
And he frames it as high status. He talks about Epstein being baller. He's associating predation with power and success. He's saying, if you want to be a top G, you have to ignore these feminist laws.
While also claiming to be a tireless defender of the truth and a Christian, the cognitive dissonance required to hold that Bible in one hand and defend the Lolita Express with the other. It's staggering.
It's Olympic-level mental gymnastics.
It really is. The source material from the forum also highlights how unlikable he is. Null said he has zero real path forward towards being a credible political ally for anyone.
Which brings us back to the dumpster fire vibe. We're watching someone just immolate their own credibility in real time, fueled by a need to be edgier than everyone else.
He has alienated the left, obviously. He's alienated the mainstream right. And now he's alienated the internet trolls and the conspiracy theorists. He's truly alone on this one.
So let's unpack the takeaway here. What have we learned from this deep dive into the abyss?
I think we've learned that logic can be twisted into a pretzel if you are determined enough to justify the unjustifiable. We've learned that there are people who view the age of consent not as a protection for children, but as an oppressive tool of the matriarchy.
That's a terrifying worldview, but it's one we need to be aware of. It's the red pill overdose.
It is. It's what happens when you take the concept of traditionalism and strip it of all compassion and context, leaving only this rigid biological hunger for power.
And we've learned that even the most toxic corners of the internet have a line. And that line is apparently defending Jeffrey Epstein with a dictionary.
It's a low bar, but at least it's a bar.
A very low bar.
Yeah.
But Fuentes managed to limbo right under it.
I think the final cynical thought here is about the state of internet discourse itself. We live in an attention economy. Being reasonable doesn't get clicks. But defending the most hated man in America, that gets you attention.
Even if it's the kind of attention that ends your career, it's the kill switch in action. Whether it was pulled by a handler or just his own massive ego, it's the snake eating its own tail.
A hebophile is just a pedophile with a dictionary. I think that quote is going to stick with me. It's such a perfect summary of the pseudo-intellectualism we see in these spaces.
It's the perfect epitaph for this entire debacle. It reminds us that you can use all the big words you want, but if your core argument is Epstein was okay, you have failed the test of being a human being.
Well, on that cheerful note, I think I need a strong drink and a very long shower.
And I think I'll go read a dictionary, just to remind myself that words actually have definitions, and that no is a complete sentence, not a construct.
Amen to that. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the absolute worst take of the year. If you enjoyed our suffering, maybe tell a friend. Or don't. We wouldn't blame you.
Stay safe out there, and stay away from the comments section.
Always good advice. See you next time.